Okay, everyone. So I am super excited and lucky. This is Jax, and I'm sitting down with our favorite Ruth Hill. That's why you're here. Now, Ruth is used to being on the asking end of all the questions, so much so that when I said to her, "Can we please do this? People want to know about you." You were so gracious that you accepted this invitation, but I don't think you're as comfortable answering the questions as you are asking them. So a lot of people want to know about you. So thank you for agreeing to do this today, Ruth.
Jax, I'm so happy you asked me. And it's interesting saying that because there was really the time period where I would have said like, it's really uncomfortable. But at this point in my life, it's actually quite an honor. And I'm really excited to be able to have somebody that wants to interview me. And I really do love getting a chance to talk about myself. I've really learned a lot, especially over the last year or so. And so I'm really good. It's not where I'm used to being, but now I really enjoy getting the chance to be able to answer questions and not just ask them.
Well, I love the way you put that, and that I feel like I've seen from the perspective of one, being lucky enough to be your friend, but also just existing in this wonderful space with you where not only our career aspirations, but our passions are closely aligned. I've gotten to see you really thrive in different ways over the last year and a half, whether that be performing or the new role you've taken on as an executive assistant, or when we've talked about hosting and a variety of things. You are so good at balancing all of that along with being an amazing mom and daughter. So I said to say all that up at the top.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. It's been really quite an incredible year and a half, getting close to 2 years now, where I've really begun to transform, and a lot of things have been happening. Because now my daughter's in college, so that's just a very recent thing, doing incredibly well. She's been, I think it's been 2 weeks maybe now in college, and she just is doing a great job. And then just with all the opportunities that have come my way, and with all of that, just there's been a lot of personal, not just professional transformation, but a lot of personal transformation going on. And it's been incredible to see that it's been said that who I am now is unrecognizable to the person that I was a year ago. I've had many people tell me that.
Well, and I want to dive into that a little bit more, but if you don't mind, I want to go back a little further. And even though I'm lucky enough to know you on a friendship level, not everyone is. And I want everyone to get to know you and at least have a little bit of a sneak peek into the life of Ruth Hill. So if we could take it back a little bit, I want to know what you were like when you were a little girl.
Oh, well, it's really interesting that you asked me that, because really what I'm doing now was the fulfillment of the dream that I had as a little girl. I didn't understand it all at that age. Growing up, I was very sheltered. I grew up, I live in Washington State, so I'm from Washington State, from Tacoma, Washington, and very sheltered, nice, loving family. There were some issues because my parents actually did divorce and then got remarried. And so that's always an interesting story. That's a whole nother story. And I have an older brother. And he
Can
was,
I actually
yeah,
ask a question about that? How
yeah.
long were they divorced for?
They were divorced for about 2 or 3 years, and then miraculously came back together. It was, and it was so cool because my brother and I actually got to be in their remarriage ceremony. I was only in first grade at that time. And I thought, oh, I get to be my parents' flower girl. And I just thought that was a normal thing. In my mind, I didn't understand that this didn't normally happen. And so it was just, I just thought, oh, this is great. My brother was the best man. And I just thought, oh, this is normal. Because I didn't know any different. But it was truly an amazing story, the way it all happened. And they have been back together now since, well, they've been back together. I mean, they've been married for over 50 years now. So it's just incredible.
I love that. And I think that that is such a unique and beautiful story, and that it shows that if we are open to receiving that kind of grace and love, that nothing is ever going to be perfect, but to keep an open mind and an open heart. And also, I just pictured being kind of funny, you and your brother thinking that the Parent Trap actually worked when you guys.
Right. Yeah. Well, we didn't really do anything. I mean, we weren't doing the stuff that those girls did, but I know it is a cool story that does not always happen. I do hear of instances of it happening, but it's a really cool story the way everything came about. And so but that was really, so my childhood growing up, I was a very good student. I was very much into music. I took piano lessons. I liked to sing, but I always did have this keen interest in especially old movies and TV. I wasn't really interested in the modern stuff and old music. I mean, that was my thing. I was really interested in stuff from like the 1930s and 40s and 50s, and I would read biographies of all these different actors, and I was really into it. I used to go to the library and search through the old catalog, the old library catalogs, and you had those, they weren't digital or anything, and you had to, and I would request these books, and I would be reading loads of books on actors. I mean, I loved Judy Garland and Bing Crosby and Cary Grant and Gene Kelly and all of these, and I loved musicals. I absolutely obsessed with musicals. I mean, I think I've watched The Sound of Music at this point probably 50, 60 times. I don't know. I mean, I have them all. I would watch them and I have them memorized, and I loved it. And I just had this dream, and I didn't understand it as a child, but I was like, I want to work with actors. I didn't really want to be an actor, but I wanted to work with actors, and I didn't understand how that would work. I didn't have a clue, but it was one of those dreams that I kind of held off, and just didn't know if it would ever come about. I don't know if I ever quite let it go. It's one of those things, you start growing up, you think, oh, this is never going to happen. So I usually kept to myself. I was a really good student. I didn't give my parents any issues really when I was growing up. We always went to church. We were always a church going family. So church was a very, very strong part of our growing up, and music was huge. I got into singing. I was obsessed with the singer Sandy Patty, as a matter of fact. I don't know if I was absolutely obsessed with her. I wanted to be the next Sandy Patty. That was what I wanted. And so I finally took voice lessons, and I actually did go off to college and studied voice. That was my.
Well, first of all, I want to say that now that you've been getting back into singing more, or I don't know if it's back into it more, if you're just sharing it more with everyone, sharing this gift that you have, it has been so wonderful to see this transformation. So, harkening back to that now, over the last year and a half, what sparked this transformation? What do you feel like is happening inside of you? And how do you see that manifesting in your daily life?
Really good questions, Jack. Wow, that's really good.
Well, I've been interviewed by Ruth Hill. I know how this works.
No, it's really good. So as far as what sparked it, I had gotten into interviewing actors, and I had a blog, and I was writing, but I was also a substitute teacher. And I really did believe that one day I would be back in the classroom. I had been a music teacher for many years. I believed that was where I really thought I would be. But then I started to get wrapped up in the interviewing and the writing and thinking, how can I make a career of this? And I wasn't really sure where that was going to be headed. And really what sparked things, I would say, first of all, I have to go back to the whole pandemic. My last day of substitute teaching was the day that school was closed for the pandemic. They had made the announcement, the official announcement. And, we thought at that point, oh, we'll be back in 6 weeks. It'll all be okay. We'll be back in 6 weeks. And we weren't, of course. But I remember that was an unusual moment, because here I was, a substitute teacher, and I was trying to calm down seniors who were worried that they weren't going to be able to graduate and how that was going to work. And here I am, I don't even know, it was a crazy time, but I will never forget that day as long as I live. And for me, that was a day that things began to change, and I didn't even know they were going to be changing. It was shortly thereafter that Paul Green and his fiance, Kate Austin, they have an online course that they take a group of people through. And they had offered it the year previously, and I had taken it. I'd taken it actually twice. And I was on the fence with a lot of things. They'd helped me, not that they hadn't. I had been good friends with Paul for some time. I'd had the chance to interact with Kate, and so I had taken the course, but I was more of a spectator. And if there was something that, especially that Paul would say, that I disagreed with, I'd just be quiet and I'd look it up and I'd say, no, he's wrong, and this is why. And I don't have to say anything. I didn't say anything. I didn't call. I was kind of out to like, well, he can't be right, and I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to take the stuff that I would like from the program and reject the rest of it. Well, they were offering it now for the third time. And since I was staying home, the pandemic, you're stuck at home. We were still in quarantine at this point and not going out hardly at all. And I thought, well, this is my opportunity to redeem myself. That was what I actually thought I was doing. And I thought, I'm going to throw myself in, and I'm going to try everything in this program and not just take the parts that I like. And so I signed up. I got a lot of other people to sign up. And then the day it starts, Paul had asked me to come on to help with there's a Facebook group attached to the course, and he'd help me, if I could help them with being admin and letting people in and all this. And I'm like, oh, sure, I'd love to do that. And then literally we're driving home from church, because our church had opened up back at that point. And my mom said, well, I want to join. And I'm like, whoa, you want to join? You want to join the course? The course starts today. Mom, do you have any idea what you're about to get in on this? And I tried to talk her out of it. I really did. I was like, I don't know, Mom, if you're going to like this. This may not be what you really want. But she was committed, and I told Paul and Kate, and they're like, oh, yeah, sure. So, and so she got signed up. And here we both were taking this course now. I was taking it for the third time. She was taking it for the first time. And this course is all about how it's an online lifestyle coaching course, I'd say. But they deal with the mind, body, and connection. And they really Kate usually does the mind, Paul does the body, and then together they'll do connection. And so I was diving in, but the next thing I know, my mom is diving in faster than I am. She's jumping in. She's doing all these things. Before I know it, she's drinking celery juice. I'm like, Mom, I was going to suggest we drink celery juice, but you're already going to drink celery juice? And she's walking, and it's like, what? And I'm like, my goodness, I got to like get with the program here. She's showing me up. I can't have my mom showing me up. and it was a really healthy. It was the way that it should be. That it wasn't like we were in competition with each other, but we were spurring each other on. You know, there were times where she didn't really want to do something, but I'd do it, and so then she'd do it, and then I didn't really want to do something, but she did. And so that now for me, as I began to really step into leadership, which I really did with the Facebook group, I did a lot with the Facebook group. That really began to spark this change as I became very open. I had decided, I'd made the decision I was going to be open. I didn't like, there were a lot of difficult things to go through in that particular time when I took the course, because I had to face a lot of things in my past. I had been through a divorce. I had to deal with some issues surrounding that. And there were some old stories that I told myself for so long and that I had to get rid of, and it was a very long process, and lots of tears, lots of not wanting to do it and working through things. But it was something, through all that, it sparked all these changes, and they were changes that yeah, I had to do something to push it forward, and I couldn't just sit there and say, oh, that's nice, and just let it happen to me. But I had to get out and really go for it. And it was so worthwhile, because physically and emotionally, and even my relationship, everything began to work as I had never seen it before.
Well, first of all, it's just so exciting to hear all that, because we've seen that in you. And what would you say, people that know you, both people you're very, very close to, and then people who know you, whether it's through the Hallmark community and beyond, because I feel like you've started to make a name for yourself that is way beyond the Hallmark community, which is huge in and of itself. You've created an empire for yourself. And I think what is so amazing about that is sometimes as some people hear creating an empire, it sounds like this really intense thing, or this thing that could be really self-indulgent. But with you, it's not at all, because you are someone who, to me, is always putting other people at the center of things, while also being able to shine with your own light. There's a wonderful balance there. And what would you say that other people have noticed about you the most? What is the most common comment that you get now about how you've changed, even if it's something little or kind of funny?
That's a really good question. I think that probably being much more open and much more authentic. In other words, I'm open to trying a lot more new things, even if I've had to step out and do things that were way out of my comfort zone, and those were things I didn't like doing always. When I was one who always liked challenges, but they were challenges where I was still somewhat in control, kind of like I could kind of control it. I've been able to step out and be much more open to new experiences, thinking of something new, trying something new, a really good example of that is, since I and I know we'll probably get a little bit further in on this possibly, but I'll throw this in now, is since I am an executive, the executive assistant to Paul Green, I told him several months ago, we need to redo your website. And we looked at hiring people and all this, and I just kept thinking, man, you're going to pay all that money, and I've never redesigned a website. I mean, I knew a little bit of it with my website, but I just said, well, why don't you let me just jump in and try it? And I didn't know what I was doing in many ways. I mean, I just had about this much experience, just a little bit. And here I am redesigning his website, and he's like, yeah, go for it. And he let me run with it. And now when it's honestly become this source of great pride, even for him, that he can show off this website that I've created really from where it was. And that was really stepping out. I never would have done that. I would have just stayed in my corner and said, okay, yeah, find somebody else to do it, because I've never done that before and I don't think I can do it. When in the back of my mind, I would have been saying, well, of course I could do it, but I might mess up here, or I might mess up there. And so that's been being very open to try new things, open to making mistakes, and realizing that making a mistake is not the end of the world. That actually, by making a mistake and by failing, by quote unquote failing, because it's really not failing. Failing is when you give up. But by not making a mistake, things,
yes.
right. And so it is being much more willing to allow myself that opportunity to make the mistakes, and like, okay, I messed up here. Let's fix it over here. We'll try it again. The chance to see why it didn't work, and let's try it again. And just being very authentic, where it used to be, I wanted to project this idea of Ruth is perfect. Ruth does everything perfectly. Ruth doesn't make mistakes. Ruth is just, and it was very important for me to have that image out there. Now it is no longer important. Well, I want to be one that does a good job and does well. It's not important for me to be perfect. In fact, actually, it can be a little bit annoying if somebody looks at my life and says, well, you're perfect and you never have any problems. It's like, it's like, no, actually, do you have a few minutes, and I'll tell you why it's not perfect. And that was something that in the past, it would have been, oh, you think I'm perfect. Oh, that's good. I'm so glad you think I'm perfect. But Paul Green said something to me. It would have been sometime last year that it stuck with me. As he said, being perfect is overrated. Like nobody wants to be perfect. I mean, you think you want to be perfect, but when you go around and you see people who are quote unquote perfect, I think that it can be a turnoff. Like, because it's like, well, that person's perfect. They're at this standard. They're way up here. Nobody can attain that. So it's actually a turnoff, and you don't even want to be around them. And I think that was actually who I was before. I can remember people saying to me, well, you just seem stuck up. I'd have people tell me I was stuck up, or that I was prideful. And it's just like, what? That's not who I am. And I knew it wasn't. But what they were seeing is that I'm putting out, I'm perfect. And so to them, that was the way that they were viewing it. That was their perception.
I love the way you shared that, because that insight is so incredible, in the fact that you're having this one experience of who you are and what you think you're putting out there. And it's being perceived in a very different way. And an interesting through line that I was hearing when you were talking was that before you were living in fear, and now there's freedom. And it's so beautiful to be able to see you flourish in this way, because I think that And this is a question that I wanted to ask you, and then I want to circle back to what you do as an executive
Yeah.
assistant. But what do you think it is about you? Because this is no surprise to anyone, but all of the actors, directors, writers you've interviewed, or anyone that I've talked to about you or within the community, we're serious about it, but it's also kind of a joke that it's like, well, you start talking to Ruth Hill, you can just tell Ruth Hill anything. Like you have a way about you that draws people out and makes them feel safe and taken care of. And you ask things in a way that lets people open up about who they are in a very authentic way. What do you think you do to do that? And is that something that is intentional, or is that just how you are?
Well, thank you for saying all that. That's nice to hear. I know I've heard that, but I never get tired of hearing that. So I'm glad, because that really goes back to my perspective. First of all, I think it's mostly unintentional, but I think there is some intentionality there. I say that because when I began interviewing actors, writers, producers, whatever, my perspective was that I had seen so much negativity out there. I mean, this is one of the reasons that I jumped in and said, I have to do something. I have to get my voice out there. I had read so many negative reviews and just things that people would say, even in interviews. I've read interviews. It was like, I can't believe somebody asked that question or said that about this person. And it just really bothered me, because I felt like these people's perspective was, well, we're just going to go in and try to tear the movie apart. We're going to try to get the dirt on that person and see if we can make them say something they're not supposed to say. And I could just read that so clearly in their whole perspective. And it bothered me so much that I decided, when I do this, my whole perspective is, let's highlight this person, make it a positive experience, everything positive about them. Let's find out who they are beyond just being an actor, and take them away from the celebrity status that they might have. Maybe they don't have it, but a lot of these people have a celebrity status, at least in some groups. And let's find out who they really are, and make it a place that also, if they tell me something that then they later on come back and say, please don't print that, please don't say that, they always knew that I would hold to my word, and I would not print that. And there are times where with some of the younger actors, especially some of my favorite interviews, you guys didn't even see half of the interview, because half the interview, and I'll just use Tyler Hines as a really great example. My first interview with him, the second, like half of the interview was, this is how you can be a successful Hallmark actor with the fans. and I would, and he knows that. He has no problem with me saying that, because of course he's always talked about me too. But I was always willing to share any insight whatsoever that I could to help them be better, whether it was on social media or with the fans or whatever the case was. And that was my perspective. That still is my perspective. And I always went in. There were times where maybe that particular actor was not in one of my favorite movies. Maybe I could hardly even get through it, but I remembered their part. And I would always make it a point to say something positive about them. Let's not tear down the movie and rip it to shreds and say how horrible this acting was or whatever the case was. That was never my perspective. It was always about, let's find what's positive. And so that is mostly unintentional, but there is that part of intentionality. That there were times where when I would be listening to an actor, and they're talking, and where I remember, okay, Ruth, let's get back and make sure that we're keeping this very positive, because it could be very easy to even get into a complaining mode without meaning to. interviews can turn into complaining as well. And not that actors would normally do that or writers would normally do that. I'm not putting anyone down. It's just you have this authentic conversation and you could start going down the road of negativity. It's like, well, I recognize that, but let's come back, let's gently come back here. And that was always something that I had in my mind when I was interviewing people.
I love that you're sharing that because I feel like my perspective on that is so similar in the fact that something that bothers me is that I do think that there is sometimes this notion that it is more difficult to be critical or have a critical eye or find the negative because it means that you are a discerning film watcher. And while I do think there is an absolute time and place for that, absolutely, yes. However, what you just touched on, I think, is very important in the fact that even if there was a film that you weren't maybe keen on the whole thing, you are smart enough to pick that specific part that rang true for you. Now, you're not going to be inauthentic and just say, it was great. Because guess what? That kind of toxic positivity that is actually not positive because it's not real, there's no there either. But when you say, I love when you did this line, or when you had this moment, or when you, even an actor who knows that maybe the movie itself or even their performance was not their best, that will ring true to them. And I've had this happen too, but I'm an actor and I've had performances that have gone way off the rails, that if someone was just like, you were awesome, I'd be like, I wasn't. But then if someone says one specific thing that rings true, you almost take that to heart. And that is what is more difficult about what you are doing as opposed to just getting into this sort of negative fast. So thank you for sharing that perspective. I think it is very true. I want to ask, so in terms of what you do as a journalist, we are able to at least have an idea of what that is because it's a little bit more front facing. I mean, of course, we never will. And at some point, down the road, we'll have time for an even longer interview, I hope. Mm-hmm. But we at least have an idea of, she has to book the actors and then write the questions and then she transcribes it. We know this. But for being an executive assistant, I think some people don't even know what that job entails. So could you fill us in a little bit about what that even is and what you do?
Well, now that's quite a loaded question, but it's a good one, a really good one. It's really fascinating. Let me start by saying that I'm currently enrolled in a business marketing course of study. I'm actually gone back online college, and so I'm going through business school is really what I'm doing. And what was really fascinating to me is as I'm in this business course, I actually talked about being an executive assistant, and so many people responded back with this idea of, well, we always thought an executive assistant was a follower, but the way you describe it, they're a leader. And they just completely transformed this whole idea of being executive assistant that I think it's out there. We don't always know what that entails, and it's going to change with depending on who you're working for. And so that was really fascinating to me because when I was hired on, I don't really believe Paul Green or I, either one of us, knew exactly what executive assistant meant. What he knew was he had 20 projects or whatever that he wanted to do that he was not getting done. And he knew that I had organizational skills, or at least, some from what he could tell, and that I could jump in and help him with these particular projects and help to get them actually done, rather than just, he's the creative type that jumps around from thing to thing to thing. And so it was a little bit, it had been recommended by his mentors, like, you need some help, you need some help here. And so he brought me on, and of course, I mean, I jumped at the chance. I was, at that point, the schools weren't opening back up, and yeah, sure, yeah, if I can do this as a job, yeah, that'd be great, because I'd already been volunteering my time quite a bit for him and for his fiance and the course, and just in general, I was like, just trying to do as much as I possibly could to help promote his career. As we've gone through the past almost a year and a half that I've worked for him, it's been really interesting to see what the job entails. So to try to explain what an executive assistant does, so that can be difficult to try to explain exactly what my role is. But professionally speaking, what I'm doing is I'm taking his 20 or so projects, which it is about 20, maybe it's 18, somewhere in there. I would have to look at the list.
Wow.
And just different things. Some of them are small, some of them are much bigger. And my job really is become more to help build his brand. I'm actually becoming more of building a brand, and it's more than just helping him, keeping him organized and keeping him on track, and making sure, helping him out with his social media stuff, and helping with the fans, those kinds of things, interacting with the fans, all those kinds of things I do, as well as helping to actually promote his work, to give suggestions. How can we do here? I've done a lot of research into the marketing, so I've done a lot with the marketing, and really it's a matter of keeping him on track, because he is so creative, and that is where he is, feels the most. Of course, he's gonna, and a creative sort of person is that's not necessarily organized. I mean, he's organized in some things, but not everything. And he will, of course, say this. I mean, what I'm saying is nothing that he has never said. And so what I get to do then is to take those projects and say, well, okay, what's our main focus? What are the 3 or 4 most important things we need to focus on? I'll look at his schedule, help him keep track of his schedule. It's a lot of interacting with the fans as well. And then it's also, I've taken over writing his newsletters, blog posts, etc. Really doing that for him. I keep his website together, and so it entails a lot. And I don't really say that I work 24/7 officially, but I do get requests at various times, and he's very kind, understanding. He's not demanding at all. So I'm really blessed in that. And he has allowed me a great deal of freedom to be able to take an idea and run with it and see if it works. And so there's a lot involved. So much of it I don't even see as work. When I have to try to figure out what I did that week and turn in a timesheet, it could be difficult, because I'll actually forget some of the things I've done for him, because I just do all these things. A lot of these things I just do, and I love doing them. And it's become that I'm so passionate about his brand and about what he is doing and his perspective, and that I'm just always there to do whatever is needed. And he has said many, many times that, and he said it publicly, he doesn't know how, doesn't know how he got along without me, because I've become so much a part of what he's doing.
I love the way you shared that too, and the way that you put it, because I know several friends of mine that work as executive assistants for actors, which is very different, I think, than working as an executive assistant to someone who is maybe in a different field, because actors want an executive assistant who is also creative and understands what the industry is like, is also maybe a part of the industry themselves, like with you being a journalist and being so deeply enmeshed in this world, both with the fact that if Paul is going to an event, all the people at this event already know you and know who you are and have a relationship with you, that it's not this thing where I'm sure he could hire a great many people that would be able to technically keep him organized and do a great job, but that very specific fit of being able to keep things organized, understanding just how incredible he is and Kate is and their cats are, and getting their lives and having those relationships, having your own genuine investment in who they are as people, in addition to what they do, and building the brand, is something that cannot be, you don't, like you said, you don't even know what that is going into it. So hearing you talk about it is just so fascinating, because I think some people don't even know what that world is. Now, before we close out, two last things I want to touch on. You are an incredible mother to an incredible daughter that I've interacted with, not as much as I would like to, but Martha is amazing. What is it like being a mom?
Oh, being a mom is something that is the greatest joy of my life. I mean, I could not have even imagined when I used to think about, when I was growing up, as a lot of girls have that thing of, oh, what would it be like to be a mom, and do I want any kids? For a while I was going to have 20 kids. And at that time, because I know I was going to adopt all these kids. I had all these ideas. I had I had all these ideas, and then the most, honestly, the most beautiful part of my marriage, I was married for 10 years, and the most beautiful part of that marriage was that we produced this amazing creation. And Martha has been such a joy and has taught me so much. And then she's been able to see my transformation, and it has caused her to be, it's been so much fun to see her at college, and for her to text me different things, and to see that she's really stepping out and doing things that I never did at that age. And so it's just such a joy. And really, she has become a friend in so many senses. We're so close. I mean, I'll tell you, we are going this coming summer. I actually got second row seats to Beetlejuice, the musical.
Yes!
And so in June we're going to go and see that. And she has been my partner in going to see musicals and concerts and things since she was like a year, around a year old. I actually took her to musicals when she was just a year or two old, and she loved them. And so she has been like my partner. It's like, it doesn't even seem right to go out and go to things without her. It's like, I can't even imagine. It's like, I'm going to a movie without Martha would seem wrong. I mean, I'm not saying I won't do it, because of course I will, but it's just this thing of, she has been the one that will come along and watch things with me. And we went to our Taylor Swift concerts, and we went to all of the programs when we were growing up, or when she was growing up, I should say. Barney and the Wiggles and Sesame Street, and all those things. I mean, I exposed her to so much, and our relationship has been so open. I made the decision early on that I would never push her to do anything. I didn't want to push her into music, and then she went into music on her own, and I wasn't going to push her to force her to try to be a good student. And then she became a student, that she's a better student than I am. I mean, she's so incredibly intelligent, and it's so wonderful to see that. And although she doesn't have a father influence in her life, it's been amazing to see how she's blossomed, and how there have been other men in her life who have stepped up and have kind of filled in for that, which has been great to see. And then it was pretty cool. I'm just going to say it was very cool to have Martha meet Paul Green, and for those two to connect like almost instantly. And they had it's like this creativity. In fact, sometimes I'll hear Paul talking and think, no wonder. I was just watching something the other day that he did, and I was like, no wonder these two got along so well. Paul just talks like Martha does. I mean, because
Yes.
there's this creativity. There was this thing he had some phrase, and I'm like, Martha would say that. And then I remember Martha, after she met him, Martha was going around saying, oh, I'm talking like Paul. I'm thinking like Paul. And it was just a few days that she spent with him, just a little bit of interaction, but it was so great to see that she was actually working for him. I mean, that was something. Like, I'm the executive assistant, and then I see her, and I remember her coming to me and saying, I got to be you, is what she said. It was so funny when she said that. And so it's just been such a joy to see her just blossom and really become such an incredible young adult, a young woman, and just so confident, and to know that, yes, I've had, that, and to recognize that, yes, I had a part in that. I'm not going to say that it's all me. I would never say that. But I know, because of the way that I did intentionally choose to parent her, that I'm reaping the benefits. And thankfully, God bless me, it was just a wonderful child.
Well, and even the way you speak about that, it's so clear that you love her so completely that you allow her to find her way on her own with your gentle love, your guidance, but you're not strong arming it. You're letting there be a freedom there that a lot of people aren't able to do, because there's a true trust that you have in her and have in yourself, that you have given her those tools and surrounded her with a love of God and a love of family and friendship and connection and her own passions, that you trust her as a young woman. And that is rare. And that's just so incredible to see. So thank you for that insight. Finally, to close it out, and this is kind of a two-parter, I want to know what's next for Ruth Hill. And in the spirit of who I'm interviewing, I know that there is something in this interview that you were like, oh, I wish she would ask me this that I haven't asked. So share something that you're such a great interviewer. I want to know what's next for you. And then I want to know for you to close it out with the question that you would have asked. And then I want you to answer it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does.
Okay.
All right. All right. Well, what's next for me is I have been able to do some work with Rama Drama Live, and they have a convention coming up in January in Florida, West Palm Beach. So I'm excited about that. And so I will be involved with that. It's still one of those things that we're not, all the pieces aren't all filled in yet, but that will be happening in January. But before that, I am planning on coming to with Paul to Chris's convention in New Jersey. So that will be something I'm definitely looking forward to. And still details to work out with all of that, but I am planning on that. What some of the things that Paul and I are currently working on that I have a part in, actually a huge part in there. He does have a book that he's been working on for as long as I've known him. He's had a book so that's been a few years now. And it was my initiative that finally said, come on, let's actually do this. And so we are working on that. And it's been really quite something, because I didn't think that I never could have seen myself as being like, he does all the talking, I record it, I transcribe it, and I try to make some sense of it. And it's going to be a really good book. Actually, the book is called 52 Ways to Be the Dad You Wish You Had. And it's really great. It is something that we talked with one publishing company who was very interested. And so I would say next year it's going to be published by Father's Day. And so that's that's already been thrown out there. You can actually go to his website and you'll see that there's a part that says 52 ways. If you click on it, there's like a countdown clock to next year's Father's Day. Because I said it's happening. I mean, it's like it's happening. I'm making sure it's happening. And so that's something I'm heavily involved with as well. I'm currently taking this business marketing course I'm going for an associate in business marketing, but I'm probably going to increase that. I am going to increase that to going for a bachelor's. Although I already have a bachelor's in music, I will be switching it over. Once I get my associate's degree, then I'm just going to say, well, let's go for a bachelor's, because I'm really enjoying getting into the business aspect of things. And so so there's definitely that. I am looking at, the possibility of maybe doing some kind of podcast with a good friend of mine. So that's also the works. And I think that you'll be seeing me doing some promotions with this rebranded network, GAC. I don't know how all that's going to work, but I'm definitely, no matter what happens, I'm definitely promoting them. I mean, I think that they just about broke the internet with all of their news, recently. I think there might be some truth to that with all of their news, which I'm just so excited to keep reading all this news. And I'm so excited to see what's going to go on with that network and how I can promote stuff. And, for me, those are all like things that I'm focusing on. Paul has a new album coming out, so I'll be heavily involved in marketing that as well. And I know a lot of the things I'm wrapped up with Paul. That's because I'm very passionate about what he's doing. But those things are really the big things for me. I mean, right now I'm in the midst of, and I'm not sure when we'll release this, but I can just say that on this day, I'm day 5 of a 10-day detox that I'm involved in, and finally feeling better. It was really rough, but it has been worth the pain. It's been worth the discomfort. And in the end, I'm going to be so much healthier. And, it's like I've already down 5 pounds, which is amazing.
Oh,
yeah, which is amazing, because I didn't really necessarily need to lose any more weight or anything, but it's been really great. It's been amazing. And I'm excited to see where this goes. It's been a great thing. So those are the things that I'm looking towards the future. I mean, there's lots of things that I have, big dreams, big goals out there for things in the future that I haven't quite figured everything out. My big goal for Paul is that he'll have a world tour, and I will help organize it. That's something that I've already decided is going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. I have no doubt. Some kind of world. I don't know what exactly the world entails, but I do know it'll be beyond just North America. I mean, I think North America is great, but let's get out there.
That is something that is so incredible about you, Ruth, is that when you start something, and I'm just so on board with this, now knowing you from even a year and a half ago, you just know that starting is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And that no matter what it is or what it looks like or what it grows into, you are confident that it will blossom and grow into something beautiful or something that'll be what it is. Mm-hmm. But again, going back to that, you live in freedom and not fear anymore. You are able to just take on all these exciting things like drama and Christmas con and promotions and podcasts and organizing all of these things and still being someone who is able to be a wonderful mom, friend, daughter, human being, daughter in Christ. Like, you are able to encompass so many things, and you truly have this beautiful life well lived. So if there's something you want to share though at the end, I want to make sure that I asked everything that you would have asked, because I've learned from you.
Well, thank you so much. That's so kind of you to say all those things. But thank you. We didn't touch a lot on my music, so let me just circle back and I'll just fill in with what's going on as far as musically speaking, how that's come about, and I'll just spend a little bit of time on that. What happened with music for me? I did go on to be a music teacher. I got a music degree, went on to be a music teacher. And voice, I have a classically trained voice. And so that was a good thing in many circles, but it began to be a bit of a liability. At least that's how I felt. I felt this, well, people would speak negatively of, oh, your voice is too powerful, it's too strong, it's too, you sound like opera singer, blah, blah, and all these different things. And so I began to just say, okay, I'm done with singing. I'll sing for myself. But I mean, even some of my family members were not on board with it. Some of my other family, more distant, I don't mean close family, but just they would kind of be like, it's Ruth singing, it's Ruth singing again. And so I really tended to draw back from it. When I went to Carnegie Hall back in December 2019, and I watched that concert. Paul was a part of that concert, and I watched the concert. It really reignited this spark within me to want to do more singing. And I didn't know what that meant. And I remember telling Paul about it, and Paul said, well, just don't think about it, just create. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of truth to that, because it's so easy to sit around and just think and talk about it, and you're going to do it, but not do anything about it. And so it was a few months later where, I think it's actually because of the pandemic, I finally jumped in and said, okay, I'm going to just put a song out there on YouTube. So I put a song out there. I remember I shared it with Paul. I was a little bit nervous sharing it with him because he had never really heard me sing. And he's like, oh, wow, you have a really powerful voice. He said, would you like to take voice lessons? Not that you need them, but would you like? And it was so weird. I thought, I haven't taken voice lessons in so many years. Sure, let's jump in. I almost couldn't believe I was doing this, but I thought, sure, it's a pandemic. I'm not doing anything. And so he got me hooked up with his voice teacher. It's all done online. And as a result of working with this guy now for over a year, it's really changed my voice in a lot of good ways. We've really worked to not make it always sound so classical. And I know I haven't released anything on YouTube recently. I've been a little bit busy, but what was really something, in fact, I'll tell you, one of the most interesting things, and I don't think Paul realizes how much this meant to me and to his voice teacher, because since he's also Paul's voice teacher, once in a while they talk about me or we talk about Paul or whatever the case is. And I asked Paul a few weeks ago, I said, okay, I'm supposed to pick another song for my voice lessons. What song would you have me sing? And I was a little bit nervous doing it. I'll be honest. I was nervous, but I'm like, nope, I'm just going to ask him. And he came back and said, well, why don't you try the song Respect, Aretha Franklin? I'm like, okay, sure. I never would have thought of that. And so I tell my voice teacher, I'm singing Respect, Aretha Franklin. I think he was like, oh, okay, I would never have chosen that for you. And I literally blew my voice teacher away because
I love that.
And I mean, it was incredible. My mom was kind of like, I know you sing it well. It's not my favorite song of yours, but I know you sing it well. It's not quite her style, but she could hear that I'm singing it well. And it was just the other day, my last voice lesson, that my voice teacher said, I'm so glad Paul suggested this, because I never would have picked this for you, and just have you break out of your comfort zone, do something different. And so that has been such a great thing. It's kind of like my voice lessons, even though I don't always get a chance to perform, my voice lessons is kind of like the time when I get to do something just for me. I used to have to make it that, well, I have to do something with this. If I'm going to take lessons, I have to do something with it. And if I'm not doing something with it, I can't. I'm not going to keep doing it. Well, it's for me. And so I don't have to go. It's not like I have to go perform and be some big time singer on the stage, because that's not really where my focus is now. But it's something that makes me feel really good when I get a chance to sing, and even just in the voice lessons, even just the weekly voice lessons, it's fun to just get this chance to sing and to play around and do some different things.
I love you. I think this is the perfect way to end out, because you just said something that to me is so profound about the fact that I think someone like you, who does give so much to other people, finally having that realization that it doesn't have to be about what am I going to do with this? How is this going to fit into what I'm giving to someone else and sharing it? I mean, all that's wonderful. I've heard you sing. It's made me happy. It's made my day better. It connects you more deeply with people. That is all well and good. However, even if you weren't doing that, it is enough that you get to do something that is for yourself. And there's so much beauty in that. And then when you do choose to share that with other people, we are blessed that you do that with us. But if you choose not to, there's still a lot of value in it. So I just say, Ruth, this has been so wonderful for me. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I can't wait to continue our friendship and collaborations. And then even just the things that are just hanging out when you come to New York City, I'll get to see you.
Yeah.
And I'll get to see you for Christmas Con. And I'm just so looking forward to our shared adventures. And thank you again for letting us have an insight. And sorry, I just clinked my water glass. I was getting too excited then. Thank you for letting us have some insight into you. We've really been wanting that, and we're so grateful that you took the time.
Well, Jack, thank you for suggesting this, for inviting me to be interviewed by you, and thank you for asking such incredible questions.
Well, I've been an avid follower of you for quite some time now, so I know how a Ruth Hill interview works. So I did my homework.
Yeah.
But thank you for saying that, and I can't wait to talk to you more soon. Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you.